be related to how we actually, the services we provide around the product. It could also be related to the sales channels that we're using, selling this product. And finally, it could also be how we actually activate the product towards the end users or consumers. Now, once we generate all these great ideas, they have to be executed. So how do we make sure that these ideas come to the market in the most efficient way? We're talking about the roles and responsibilities linked to these different workflows that are supported by best practice templates and checklists, and ideally they are facilitated by IC applications, so digital project management, and last but not least, also driven by a strong innovative culture. Finally, we will talk about the impact that these great ideas hopefully bring to the marketplace, being for the consumers, the customers, and essentially also, of course, the company itself. I would like to start by taking a helicopter view, however, on innovation, since innovation has to take place in a strategic context. It's not an issue for most companies to get ideas. The ideas, or the challenge is more to actually allocate the necessary resources to make these ideas come alive. So therefore, we need to take a strategic perspective on innovation to make sure that we have allocated the necessary resources across the different functions and make sure that all the functions are aligned when it comes to the actual execution. So we have the resources in production, we have the warehouse capacity, the communication is in place, of course the product is ready, customer care is already prepared that we need to start selling this product, and we have the financial and HR resources available. Now let's take a look at the insights. As I mentioned, insights can come from different sources. Typically when we're talking about FMCG, we know something about the consumers, we know something about our customers. It could also be suppliers that actually bring us insights that we can turn into great ideas. We might even look to the competitors to see what they're doing, or it could be external advisors that will help us spotting new trends or whatever that can be generated or that can be supported, brought into the idea generation process. Now, once we've generated the ideas, they should also be elaborated so that it's clear for the entire team what is actually the target, what are we trying to develop here, which is a common challenge. So we should describe what is actually the product, the concept we're trying to develop, which are the usage situation this product could actually go into, what is the target group that we are actually aiming at who should buy this product, and what are the benefits they would get out of it, and via which sales channels would they actually be able to get access to this product. Now, it's worthwhile investing some time in screening this vast, let's say, list of products that are product ideas that typically come up. And we can see from research that average companies, they spend about 46% of the resources on projects that fail. In turn, they only get 25% of the new turnover from new products. Whereas best practice companies that have really put a solid screening process in place, they manage to reduce the number of resources used on projects fail by 20%, and they actually generate almost half of the turnover from new products. So this is evidence that it's worthwhile spending time on doing this screening. So how do we do this? Well, ideally, you start by looking at your gross list of ideas. Then you apply at first a more strategic or qualitative filter, checking whether these ideas are within your business strategy, within your product strategy, could be your customer strategy, and whether you have the capacity or resources available to actually bring this idea to market. And last but not least, also look into the legislation, because quite a lot of companies, they actually run with new ideas, and then much too late in the process, they actually evaluate whether this idea complies with legislation. So as we become wiser, as the new idea materializes probably into a product, we know more about the marketplace we are looking for, we will be able to make a more quantitative business case, which high level would estimate our profits, we could deduct the investments needed, and then we would get a return on investment. Now this, as you can see, this should be an ongoing process ideally. So once we've actually described our initial idea, we will be ready to make an indicative business case. This should be high-level desk research essentially. Once we get a bit further, we can make a more quantitative business case, as I mentioned, and then this information can actually feed directly into our customer plans and presentations, and then we should do a post-launch evaluation as well. To put it into a few more words, our key insights and concept description is a central part of our idea and concept description. In the indicative business case, we should be looking at the product idea, the overall sales strategy, the price strategy, and the activation strategy. Once we get a bit further, we actually have a pilot product we can start testing. We could also be looking at the distribution per sales channel, a pricing per sales channel, and an activation per sales channel. So we get a bit closer to the marketplace here, a bit more quantitative data on the table. And then we are ready to go out and present the final product to the customer. We will then get a confirmation on our actual distribution per customer. The pricing per customer will be agreed, and we will also hopefully align some kind of activation plan per customer. And then once the product is in the market, we will be able to follow up. So did we actually get the trial and repurchase of the product that we expected? Did we actually get the distribution and qualitative exposure of the product in the stores that we hoped for? Have we reached the price points and the turnover rate that we agreed initially? And last but not least, did we get the awareness and did we achieve the relevance of the product amongst the consumers that we also expected to get? And this entire evaluation process is actually a cross-team process involving both NPD and production when it comes to the product, sales and marketing when it comes to the distribution and price strategy, and marketing when it comes to overall activation of the product.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Sure.
Because we have some questions from the audience. Thank you very much for asking these questions when signing up to this Food Innovation Talk. So far, you've been talking about all these ideas and that it's important to choose the right ideas and to make this screening so you get the right ideas. But what about getting the ideas into market?
Well, you're quite right. So far we talked about doing the right things. Now let's talk about doing the things right, essentially. So generating a maximum output based on a minimum input, so to speak. And when we talk about execution, you could say that unclear ways of working is a bit like playing football in the fog. It's very hard to make a straight pass to your colleague if you can't see him on the field. And it's very hard to make a controlled reception of the ball if you only see it once it hits your body. And it's very hard to make a goal if you do not have a common and clear picture of where the goal is actually placed. So what it's all about is actually to create some clear tactics that is essentially a prerequisite for this efficiency, that we make sure that the ideas are executed efficiently in the marketplace. So having a clear idea across the team, how do we play the ball towards the goal and hopefully scores a beautiful goal in the end in terms of a successful new product launch. And coming back to the framework we went through a while ago, we can actually link this workflow to our evaluation process, because essentially it's about describing the overall flow of how do you actually get to the market, and then using that information to let's say put that information into a framework that makes it easy for you to evaluate the ideas as you go along. Yeah, so what to do? Luckily, it's not rocket science, this. Essentially, it's about describing, as I just said, what needs to be done. Taking it step by step, how do we come from the idea generation? How do we screen the products in more detail? How do we actually want to launch this product? What are the elements we need to look at when we look at the launch strategy? How do we conduct the concept development, the product development, the packaging development, and the campaign development? How do we sell the product into the customers, making sure that we have a successful sales negotiation, and how do we make sure that the product is launched efficiently in the market? And then how do we follow up to make sure that we get the experience and the insights into the coming planning process, essentially. it's not enough to describe what has to be done. We also need to allocate clear roles and responsibilities to make sure that it's clear to everyone, as we talked about earlier, who's doing what when and how. So essentially, you should look at what are the tools that we need to make sure that we do the things right. The individual activities, it could be calculation sheets to make sure that we have the right price to the customer. It could be various brief templates, or it could be supporting decision trees that make sure that we apply the experience we have from previous processes to make the right decisions. Now, describing all this is, as I said, it's not rocket science. The real challenge is actually to bring all this alive. I was part of the marketing and management in Arla just after the merger between Arla Foods and MD Foods, and we did all the right footwork, so to speak, in terms of describing how 150 marketing and development colleagues should work together across Stockholm and Viby. We put all these process descriptions, all these tools and templates into the intranet, and essentially what happened was that it was lying there collecting digital dust ever since then, because nobody enters that kind of reference material in a busy every day. So the real challenge is to conduct the change management to make sure that these processes come alive in the organization. And for that purpose, we can actually use digital support in the shape of project management tools. And this is where we come to the digital part of this. So instead of working with static Excel sheets, you can actually use dynamic project overviews that are updated on a continuous basis as the workflows in the different projects are progressing. These clear workflows could be elaborated in terms of what has to be done, who should do it, and when in dynamic workflows, and are updated as we go along. And then that is aggregated into the overall project overviews. And we can see that efficient document management is a really big challenge in many companies because they are spread across different directories, in different inboxes and stuff like that. But having it all gathered in one platform really makes it easy to access the documentation you need and provide the documentation you need when needed, essentially. And then it's about automating as much of the communication as necessary. McKinsey actually did a study between 4,200 knowledge workers a couple of years ago, showing that we spend 28% of our time handling emails. So that's a day and a half a week. And then we spend another 20% of our time searching for information, so linked to the efficient document management.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
So now we've actually spent half our week looking for information and handling our inbox. So all this can be, if not eliminated, then at least significantly reduced by having all your innovation projects gathered in one place. Now there are a number of, let's say, digital platforms that can actually facilitate these different types of projects. We have more specialized software, so more collaboration tools like Trello, Podio, more CRM-related Salesforce. Then we have TimeLog, which is for time registration, and SharePoint, which is a more specific document management system. And then over here we have the more, let's say, general project management tools. So most of you probably know MS Project, which is a very big and advanced project management tool. And then over the later years, a number of, let's say, more user-friendly tools have emerged. And the ambition we've had with Effect Launcher is to make, for example, a tool that is easy to access, even for people who don't have a high level of IT skills. So by actually bringing these projects to life in a digital platform, you increase your productivity significantly. And further, you also increase the quality of the output of the projects because you've been efficient in producing something that actually adds value. And when the productivity is there, the quality is there, the profitability also sneaks in on you, because then you've been efficient in providing something that creates value to your customers, whether they are internal or external customers. And last but not least, it's also about joy at work, because it is more fun to go to work every day if you're part of a well-oiled machine, rather than spending most of your day discussing with your colleagues who should do what and when, and why don't I get the information I need when I need it, etc. So in a few more words, so what are the benefits that we get out of this? Well, we get a shorter time plan for our projects because we create fewer mistakes. There's less firefighting. We have a better resource planning, so we make sure the resources are available when we need them. We get a better cooperation because we accumulate the collective experience in the organization and gather the best practice in these common innovation processes. We get a fast onboarding of new employees because when they enter the company, they will very fast understand what is my role in these different projects. And the fact that we get an overview of the whole process generates a holistic understanding of what is my role, in when should I deliver, and how. And then all this burns down to an increased profitability due to the increased productivity. It releases time and energy for innovative thinking. It's a bit related to what we see in the bottom. When you have this underlying structure, it liberates the employees to think more creatively. We know that in our everyday life, if we're very stressed because we lack the structure in the organization, it doesn't really nurture creative thinking. No. And as we talked about, the improved quality of the output also drives an increased profitability.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this increased profitability is not just something we're saying. We have evidence from our clients that once they start working in a structured way, they actually improved their innovation project efficiency by 33%, which is quite dramatic. Further, the Danish Chamber of Commerce have made analysis across different businesses that the businesses that are, let's say, best at utilizing digitalization in the companies actually generate 135,000 kroner more in value per employee. So it is worthwhile looking into how can we structure these processes, how can we actually make them come alive across the organization.
Yeah.
And that was all I had.
Thank you very much.
Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, actually,
yes.
On that note,
yes.
We have some questions from the audience. You
Great.
have talked a bit about implementing it and getting, your colleagues and your employees to go along this project. And a question is how to change the mindset of people that is not so prone to innovation or maybe too much involved in, day-to-day activities. So it's difficult to move mindset from, focus and deliver.
Yep.
So how do you reach these people?
Well, that's actually essentially what we've been talking about, is creating and visualizing the process and visualizing also the ideas that goes into these processes. Because once you start describing them, it's actually easier to share and get commitment and involvement across the organization. Mm-hmm. So that is quite an essential side benefit of having, let's say, a visualized process, having described all the product ideas, because that enables you to start sharing them and actually makes it visible to the organization. What are we working on? What is the target product for this innovation process? And what is my role in this process as well, which is an important motivation factor, because it gives you a sense of purpose. Rather than you're just pulled into a process on an ad hoc basis. Oh, by the way, can you solve this? We need 5 minutes in the test kitchen tomorrow. Can you please provide that? So it's getting that holistic overview, understanding what is your purpose or what is your role in the overall process, and what is the target outcome of that process.
And another question from the audience is, a question is that a person here is working with scientists, and the most challenging is to make them aware of the importance of value creation and implementation when collaborating with companies. Yeah.
Well, again, it's a bit the same discussion, actually. It is about bringing these ideas to life so that you're actually able to share them with your, let's say, cooperation partners outside the company as well. Yeah. And also, and that is what a lot of companies have been focusing on the last, decade, essentially, is this open innovation. How do we invite our suppliers? How do we open our innovation to other cooperation partners across the value chain? And of course, that let's say that poses a challenge to many companies, because how much do you share and when without opening up to your, let's say, the core of your innovation, essentially. But a structured process could also, let's say, help you specify. So when do we actually bring these external partners in, and what is the, let's say, the communication flow that we actually share with these external partners?
And a last question is, what about the evaluation? You've implementing, but the evaluation is quite an important part as well.
Yeah, that's right. And that is why it's so important to, let's say, specify some rather objective criteria across, let's say, the organization. What are the success criteria for this idea? And as we talked about earlier, this, let's say, evaluation should not be a one-off, which is quite a typical challenge in many companies. They evaluate the idea when it comes off the gross list of ideas, and you're turning that into a net list of ideas. And then the idea is actually not evaluated after that point of time. So it should be an ongoing evaluation as you turn wiser, as the idea becomes more specific, as you may test it versus suppliers or versus consumers versus customers. So that's an important, let's say, takeaway from today's discussion is don't just evaluate once, do it on an ongoing basis and within a structured framework. Right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I want to thank you, Rolf, thank you very much for giving this very inspiring talk about structuring innovation processes. And if you still have some questions for Rolf, you're very welcome to send them to us, and we will forward them to Rolf, and he will answer them for you. And if you want to stay updated on news from Danish Food Cluster and the coming food innovation talks, you can sign up to a newsletter in the bottom of our website. And a last thing that I need to inform you of is that if you are a member of Danish Food Cluster, you can get 3 free uses at Effect Launcher.
Right.
So please explore that. And then just last to say thank you very much, and thank you very much, Rolf.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching this food innovation talk by Danish Food Cluster. You can always visit our webpage for reviewing this food innovation talk. Hope to see you soon and have a nice day.